things are rocking and rolling. What about for you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Oh, it looks like we're live streamed.
You did it. Erin, are the attendees that are listed, the 5, are they actually in the room already?
I believe so, because I went and checked the settings and it said that we had a waiting room, but unfortunately, no one, it didn't require me to admit them.
Okay, so everybody's
I
here.
believe we're good to go, and thank you guys for being here. Now we are live. Hopefully I did this correct on Facebook. It's only my second time. And so I know, Kerry, that you wanted to say a couple words before I shared the PowerPoint. So I want to make sure you guys have the floor for a minute. And then I know we are going to move into introductions.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say hi to everyone. We're so excited to be here with all of you for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. We have a great panel set up for you this evening. We're just showing you all our faces at the beginning, and then we're going to go straight to a PowerPoint just so it's a little bit more organized in nature. We're really excited to see all of you. We have Stephen Shore, who's an amazing autistic self-advocate as well. And we're just really excited to talk about this really important topic of autism and employment. So we're happy to have you here.
Yeah, and I echo Kerry's sentiments. It's great to be here. I look forward to some great discussion and some great information being shared today that will be helpful to all of us who are autistic and those who support autistic individuals.
Well, I know I speak, I think, for myself. My name is Dr. Erin Lozad. I'm the program director at ELS for Autism, and Dr. Marlene Sotelo, our fearless executive director leader of the entire organization. We couldn't be more honored and thrilled to have you both here with us today. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share your slide deck and we can get started, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we sure can. Yeah.
Would you prefer if I did it in full presentation view, or do you want to see the sidebar? I want to make sure I meet your needs with this.
Full presentation would be fine with me if it works for Stephen.
Yeah, it works. Yeah,
How
that's
does that look for you
fine.
guys? I like it. Very good.
Yeah.
So today we are here to talk about building bridges to meaningful and productive employment with our advisory board members who just introduced themselves, Dr. Stephen Shore and Dr. Kerry Magro. Welcome. They're gonna be discussing employment topics related to onboarding, reasonable accommodations, barriers to entry to employment, and so much more. And we're really excited to have an interactive Q&A following the presentation. So I hope all of you out there on Facebook Live and that have joined the Zoom webinar are ready to learn and just be inspired. You guys want to take it away?
Sure, Stephen, the floor is yours.
All right. So, yeah, I'll let the fun begin. I am a professor of special education at Adelphi University, focusing mostly on issues related to autism, whether it's teaching my courses or doing research on how we can make fulfilling and productive lives for autistic individuals the rule rather than the exception. And I am here because after 18 months of typical development, I was struck with the regressive autism bomb. And we're like, with 30% of us, I lost functional communication, had meltdowns, withdrew from the environment, and in brief, became a very severely affected child on the autism spectrum. Fortunately, my parents, like we see so many parents today in ever increasing numbers, they advocated on my behalf and convinced the school to take me in about a year. And it was during that year my parents had to implement what we would today call an intensive home-based early intervention program. And with the work that they did, it was speech began to return at age 4, entered the school that initially rejected me. I got reevaluated. Instead of being considered as psychotic and ready for an institution, I got upgraded to neurotic. So things were looking up in the world. And then from there, it was on to regular school kindergarten, where I was a social and academic catastrophe. You know what happens to those of us who are different in grade school? Fortunately, school systems have begun to realize that bullying is not a developmental phase that people just kind of go through, but something really needs to be done about it. So that's very encouraging. Academically, I was a grade behind in most of my subjects. I would spend most of my time reading books on my favorite interests, such as music or aviation, volcanoes, earthquakes, dinosaurs, whatever it was. Sometimes even wondering if there was more to school than just reading my books. And I think what it translated to is that teachers didn't quite know how to reach me. But since I wasn't a behavior problem, they just left me to my own devices, probably for better rather than for worse. Middle and high school, you don't need to be autistic to have difficulties in middle and high school. But for me, it was actually easier because, for one, I was able to engage in my highly focused interest of music. And I got so taken up with music that I got it into my head that I needed to learn how to play all the instruments. And well, I didn't get them all down, but I did get it up to about 15. And then when I learned that a requirement for a degree in music education was you had to learn all the instruments, well, that was just the thing to do. And that's what I did all the way through my doctoral degree coursework. And then I started getting more interested in autism. And so I defected to the School of Education and got my doctorate in special education. And now I am before you, where I spend most of my time either teaching or researching at Adelphi University on issues related to autism. When there isn't a pandemic, like Kerry, I'm kind of bouncing around the country, bouncing around the world, talking about autism and seeing how we can improve the lives of autistic individuals. And writing books and articles and giving music lessons to children on the spectrum. And I look forward to today as we focus on what we can do to bring autistic strengths to employment possibilities and matching them up. And Kerry, I turn it over to you.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to give Stephen the opportunity to speak a little bit first. We had the opportunity to just share on our Facebook pages about this wonderful event because we need more discussions about this in our community. My name is Dr. Kerry Magro, professional speaker, author, and autistic self-advocate. I, similar to Stephen, was dealing with some autistic characteristics from a very, very early age. I was told when I was about 4 years old that I would be unlikely to graduate from high school due to the severity of my autism diagnosis. But today I am a full-time professional speaker, getting to travel the country, similar to Stephen, getting to talk about a wide range of topics impacting our autism community, especially this topic of autistic employment, because the fact is, statistics indicate that up to 90% of autistic adults are unemployed or underemployed in the United States. And our autism community, the popular image of autism is with children, and autistic children will become autistic adults. We need to be ready for them. So hopefully from tonight's presentation, you will get a little bit more of an emphasis on that. In addition to my public speaking, I get the opportunity to say that I'm a published author, autistic entertainment consultant, trying to bring realistic portrayal of autism to our entertainment industry, gain the opportunity to have my own nonprofit where I provide mentoring and coaching for those with autism and disabilities across the lifespan, in addition to doing a little bit of Stephen's work today, graduating with my doctorate in education. So hopefully I can become an adjunct professor teaching similar to Stephen about our very special community. So I'm just so thrilled to be here. I'm so thrilled for organizations such as L's for Autism. Please, if anyone gets the opportunity after this presentation, check out all the amazing things they're doing on their Facebook page in addition to their website, because I think they're doing some tremendous work. And it's really important that they're highlighting National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which is happening this October. So I'm just excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Stephen and Kerry. Let me get your slides going for you. And We wanted to give a little shout out tonight to You Can Employ, which is Else for Autism's roadmap for hiring individuals with autism spectrum disorder. Marlene, I don't know if you want to say a couple words about You Can Employ. I know you've been at the heart and soul of this project that we're so excited about.
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Stephen Shore and Dr. Kerry Magro for being here. I feel like we're a full panel here of doctor in education. We have lots of brains going on. And I'm very thankful to both of you for being on our advisory board and for sharing your expertise and insight so that we can always have the voice of individuals with autism coming through in our programs. And so this is one of the projects that we shared with our advisory board. It came out of the conference that we did earlier in the year in March, where we had individuals with autism as a panel. We had Kerry, you participated, and Stephen, you participated as well in the lunchtime chatting for the conference. And it was really all about employing individuals with autism and training employers on how to onboard, how to recruit, how to also sustain employment for individuals on the spectrum. And so we wanted to create an easy to follow manual for employers that would really lay out a roadmap of what to do for each of these elements, how to recruit, how to onboard, how to make accommodations so that when you do hire someone on the spectrum, that it could be successful for that individual, but also successful for the business. Because at the end of the day, and I'm sure that Stephen and Kerry will talk about this, that at the end of the day, it has to make business sense for everybody, just like with any employment. So there has to be a good match and there has to be good business sense for it. So we're going to be launching this program completely in 2022, but for now, we are going to be having a landing page with some information to get things going on our You Can Employ initiative, and we're looking forward to sharing more information in the future.
Thank you so much, Marlene. All right. So in starting our conversation about inclusion and neurodiversity and autism and employment, we wanted to talk about addressing what, Kerry, I think you just had mentioned, underemployment and unemployment and the obstacles that individuals with autism, autistic adults face when they're going to look for a job and when they're in a job. I know that one of the questions that we posed was in looking at why do you believe the rate of unemployment and underemployment is so high for autistic adults, understanding that some of the statistics indicate that up to 90% of autistic adults in the US are either under or unemployed.
Yeah, so Stephen, would you like to go first? It's
Well,
totally
I'll let you go. I went first last time.
all right.
Let's
So
switch off. So
Stephen
you
is
rock it. Then I'll follow up.
for everyone who's joining us tonight. Stephen is the prototypical definition of a gentleman, so I appreciate Stephen. So this question it's really important because at the end of the day, I mean, we like I mentioned a little bit in the intro, we continue to have conversations about early intervention, and don't get me wrong, it's the key towards making sure that we could let these individuals live the best quality of life possible across the lifespan. But unfortunately, most publicly funded services end at the age of 18. So what happens when actually it does happen? So we see a big drop off, especially because a lot of schools sometimes do the bare minimum when it comes to providing transitional services to even get some of our community involved in potential work placements, job mentoring, job coaching. So a lot of the times it's not only the fact that a lot of these kids are going out of high school and aging out at 21 and not really having the blueprint of how to go about finding employment. And then on the other end of it, we see that a lot of employers, they are thinking about the bottom line. And what I've seen from a lot of companies that I've spoken to on this topic is that we see them think about the bottom line and having to pay out of pocket for reasonable accommodations as something that is typical for all autistic people. And that couldn't be further from the truth. What I hope that people can learn about tonight is that it's not about what a company can do for an autistic person. It's what an autistic person can do for that company. Realizing that most reasonable accommodations in the workplace cost absolutely nothing for autistic employees, and that those with autism are more likely to stay at a job longer, along with have less absentee rates. And I have my own personal journey of trying to find successful work as somebody who's autistic, but I know that we need to break down a lot of stigmas, but then we also need to go the other realm and make sure that these students are prepared once they age out of school into possible employment opportunities as well, and have that blueprint.
Stephen, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I certainly do. And that is, I think the challenge we face is that looking for a job is an extremely neurotypical social thing to do. And how do most people get jobs? It's through an interview. And the only thing I can think of that's more typically social is going on a date. And when a company interviews people, they'll have a selection of people. Probably most of them could do the job. However, really, it's a matter of getting the interviewer to like you. And there are certain nonverbal cues, certain hidden curriculums that go along with interviewing that can be difficult for us autistic people to process and to enact. We can do it, but then the question is, if we're so busy thinking about the rules of interviewing, how much is left for the job? So, for example, I've got an experience that when I was in my teens, my first formal job, and that is one that you work for a certain number of hours a week, you punch a time clock, and you get a paycheck every couple of weeks, was in a noisy restaurant. Well, that was a basket full of sensory violations. And it made me realize I needed to do something else. So I thought about what I was good at. And I thought about my interest in bicycles. I had it to where I could take a bicycle apart down to the ball bearings and put it back together again, with no pieces left over and the thing still working. So what I did is I got on this bicycle, I made the rounds of all the bicycle shops, I'd locate the manager, and I would nerd into my bicycle with the manager, engaging in extreme bicycle nerdery. Then after a period of time, I'd ask him for a job. It took about 11 times, but on the 12th time, I did get a job. And now I could do something that I liked, was good at, could regulate my sensory input by working in the back of the shop, or I could go out to the front end of the shop and perseverate on bicycles to people who walked in, although I think the owner called it selling bicycles. So that's an example of using a strength and an ability, and the bike shop probably getting one of the best bicycle mechanics that they could possibly get. And what I realized from that is that I used the portfolio method of looking for a job. And that is getting your work out in front of the person who has the power to hire and getting them interested in your work. And that was what I did with my bicycle. I got the manager interested in my work, talking about bicycles and what I did with them and building bicycle wheels and all that stuff. So that by the time I asked him for a job, he already knew he knew I could get around on a bicycle. And in that way, there was no remembering. How many times do you pump a recruiter's hand, by the way? Almost everybody knows the answer, even if they don't know they know it. It's 3. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 4. You pump too many times, you hold on to the hand too long, you hold it too hard or too soft, then it's going to be seen as strange. How much eye contact do you make with the recruiter? Well, both Kerry and I can learn to do that. What is the rule, by the way? Who sits down first in the interview? Oh, the interviewer says, just wait a moment. I got to get something in my filing cabinet. Why don't you have a seat? And then someone like me might say, well, I know the rules and I know you're trying to trick me. The interviewer is supposed to sit down first and then invite me to sit. And since I know the rules, I think I'm just going to stand here and watch you until you get what you need and you sit down at your desk. Guess who's not getting the job? So I think the more the companies can focus on what we can do for the company, and then when we can match up our interests and strengths, you have the real possibility of the autistic person being a regional, national, or international expert on that subject. And this is something that I clearly saw at SAP about 5 or 6 years ago. My colleague Robert Nassif and I were asked by Robert Nassif, the ARC of Philadelphia, and a number of other people who we all collaborated together to where we developed and delivered a 40-hour training program for young autistic adults interested in IT. So we got half a dozen of these adults together in a room, all autistic. The room didn't explode. We thought it might with so many autistic people in the room. And we covered material that had everything all that we called the soft skills of looking for a job and keeping a job. So we got through those that week. Then what SAP does is they give these candidates, all of these candidates were given a Lego robot with instructions. Then supervisors would observe how these individuals put together their robots, how fast they did it, what did they do, for example, if they were one of the first to finish, did they go help someone else out, finish their robot? And that was perceived as something that was a good prognostic sign. And then after all that, they had a pizza party and talked about employment. Well, what happened? At the end, they were expecting to hire 12. They hired every last one. And 5 or 6 years later, they're all still working there. And that's where you get the loyalty. We're grateful to have a job, and we're going to be loyal to an employer. They all, that's where we get into characteristics such as routine. I have yet to meet an employer who does not like the routine of an employee showing up to work on time every single day. So now 5 years later, everybody's working there except one, and that person moved across the country, so I guess he had to leave his job. So that's an example of how we can address the challenge of this vast under and unemployment rate. And what I'm going to say for a little bit later on is, what can we do? Even though all this autistic nerdery is great to read about and that it's happening, I always ask, what about everybody else? What about those of us who have skills in other areas? And what about those of us who need more supports throughout our lives? What types of employment is available for those of us?
Stephen, I think that's such a strong point to transition with as we move through the slides. My dissertation was actually on how to best train job coaches, working with autistic adults who are non or minimally verbal in employment settings. And what I've heard you both just say is that we need to look at the person's strength. We need to look at their interests. We need to really match the types of jobs and we need to what they want to do. And we need to train employers on how to interview in a better way, how to onboard in a better way, so that the barriers that someone may have with autism from a social standpoint are mitigated for, and their strengths can just shine through this process. And in looking at a population of adults with autism that are non or minimally verbal, we looked at how to best train vocational rehabilitation counselors who are making eligibility decisions for funding for supported employment, and then how to best train job coaches that are going to be working directly with employers to then support our employees with autism on the job. And hopefully that will help continue to address this under an unemployment obstacle that we're seeing in high rates that really shouldn't be there. And one of the things I thought was most interesting in my dissertation was that I learned is that VR, vocational rehabilitation, for autism has so much funding. It's one of the most underused funding sources of VR, because oftentimes someone comes in and has all the skills in the world and doesn't look like they should need help, right? Or someone doesn't know enough about autism, how to assess an individual that doesn't have verbal abilities. So then how would you be able to make someone eligible if you don't know what their strengths could be to then have a job, or if the job coaches don't have access to professional development? So one of the reasons I chose the topic is to try to put information out there, and I found out some really nice things at the end of it. So hopefully I'll have an article out soon that will be able to help address this issue, and have the vocational rehabilitation and the job coaches working within that system have more knowledge to better support, and then therefore hire more adults with autism across support levels.
Well, I look forward to that article.
Me too.
Yeah, likewise.
So let's move on. All right, guys, I'm having a hard time seeing the next slide screen. Uh-oh. Oops. Sorry, technical difficulty. One second.
While Aaron is dealing with technical difficulties, we had a question from one of the participants. He asked, what is the most important tool that he
I'm
can
going
provide?
to need to stop sharing for just a second. If Marlene, you want to jump in and give your 2 cents, that would be great.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you,
Okay,
Marlene.
great.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
I think
So,
you're muted, Marlene.
Oh, no,
Oh, no, you got there. There you
No,
go.
I'm there.
Okay.
Okay, so what is the most important tool that he can provide consumers that he works with as a companion that allows them to succeed in the work world? So Mark, who's attending, he's a companion for someone with autism, and so he wants to know from you guys what would be the most important tool that he can use to help them succeed at work?
Well, I think and obviously autism is a very large spectrum. It's so funny that we have the legend behind the quote, if you met one individual with autism, you met just that one individual with autism. So it's no one size fits all. However, what I will say is that disclosing, I think it's one of the best tools that you could potentially do in the workplace. I will say that with a caveat. One of the great things that I learned from ElseForAutism.org's website when they had their workforce event earlier this year was the importance of the Disability Equality Index, which basically just allows for people to go on their website and to look and see if a company has practices of actually hiring people with disabilities already in their company. After doing that, I would take a big look, because again, there is bias, there is stigma around disabilities in the workplace, then going about disclosing that diagnosis and going about seeing if there are any reasonable accommodations in terms of weekly check-ins with supervisors, potentially written instructions for different tasks, potential opportunities towards senior leadership mentoring as well, in addition to job coaching. I mean, all these are absolutely free and available to many individuals, regardless or not they have a disability, but specifically in terms of 504 reasonable accommodations, that could be very, very beneficial. But it is a spectrum. There is no one size fits all, but these are some things I definitely think could help, at least to start conversation.
Yeah, that's right, Kerry. And when we think about disclosure, and generally we're disclosing only if we have something to advocate for. And when do we do it? And that's often a big question. When is it appropriate? And I think the best way to look at it is that if autism significantly impacts a situation or a relationship, and there's a need for better mutual understanding, then it's time to start thinking about an advocacy plan. And in the process of advocating and then disclosing, you can also elect to do a full disclosure. Hi, I'm Kerry Magro. I'd love to work for you. I'm autistic, and you go on from there. Or it could be, say, for example, I'm being shown a a room that's lit with recessed lighting fixtures. Well, many of you may think that this hat's a fashion statement, and well, it's yeah, I guess secondarily it is, but primarily it's an accommodation, because for me, being under recessed lighting fixtures is like looking into a spotlight for most other people. So in such a case, if I was being shown a workspace that was lit with that type of lighting, number one, of course, I have to recognize that this is a challenge in the first place, which speaks to the importance of autistic people understanding what it means to them or to us to be autistic, and then being able to recognize when we bump into one of these challenges, and then too, being able to advocate, well, gee whiz, Mr. Supervisor, I noticed that nobody is wearing a hat in the office, but I wonder if it's okay if I wear a hat. So it's just a one sentence, easy to understand, easy to provide support for. And the reason why is because these lights are really bright. They hurt my eyes. They give me a headache. I haven't said anything about autism. And I've gone straight to the chase and talked about the specific aspect. And if I'm really on top of my game, I might even say, you know, wearing this hat will also allow me to be much more productive for your organization, and I'll be able to do a lot more. And that's a partial disclosure. There are other situations where the full-blown disclosure is warranted.
That's, you know, I never thought about it that way. In the partial disclosure, you're still advocating for your needs, but not necessarily coming right out and stating what your diagnosis is. It's just a specific need. And really, there are people that aren't on the spectrum that need accommodations, whether, you know, whether it's with lighting or temperature. I'm always freezing. And so whatever it is, it's about being able to advocate for yourself. And that's really great information that you shared on that.
I think it's nice to give people choices and permission to not have to say something they're not ready to say yet, but still get their needs met. If you guys would like, I have the PowerPoint back and ready. I appreciate
Bring it on.
Conversation in the meantime. I don't know what happened, but you know, we just are flexible. It's the name of the game. So let's hope that this works. And I think it's or maybe not. Oh,
No, it's a little bit flaky today.
yeah, it doesn't really love me long time tonight, but it's okay because I'm going to fix it for you guys. And what we were talking about on the next slide was actually strengths of autistic adults in the workplace. And I have a beautiful visual from our You Can't Employ manual. But in the meantime, I think we've kind of touched on some of the strengths when we first started the conversation about, you know, probably loyalty and not leaving and always being on time and attention to detail and these really wonderful traits that we don't always think about right away when we're interviewing or recruiting for a job. But if Kerry or Stephen, you want to speak to the strengths that you feel like most autistic adults have or that should be highlighted for employers during this webinar, that would be wonderful. And I'm going to get this PowerPoint up for you, I promise.
Well, I've got an example. So why don't I start with that? It's an example of a fellow I know of in Florida. And he has some significant challenges. He'd probably be diagnosed with, on the autism spectrum, needing supports at level 2. He does communicate, but support is needed. He communicates through an assistive communication device and needs support maintaining his schedule and getting around. However, he has this curious interest, and that's a characteristic of autism. When we get involved in an interest, we go all the way and then some. And his interest is folding laundry, folding it perfectly. And I know many people who would like help with their laundry. And this guy would fly up to where you are from Florida in a moment to help you with your laundry. However, you have to pay him to do it. That's his job. He spends all day in a hot laundromat, pulling clothes out of a dryer, folding them perfectly better and faster than everybody else. Now, the key here is that he enjoys his job. He enjoys it. He's also contributing to society. He's valued for what he is doing. And he's, you might say, a good deal or a great catch for this laundromat who he happened to get connected to. And that's an example of somebody on the spectrum where we look at the characteristics and we find ways to use those characteristics in successful employment. And as Kerry said, the laundromat is not asking, what can I do for this autistic person? It's, what can this autistic person do for me? And he's doing a great job and is probably more enthusiastic about it than everybody else.
I think I have this for you guys now, so I'm just gonna pop
All
this
right,
out.
we'll try again.
I'm telling you, flexibility and patience. And I think what you guys had mentioned, persistence, it took you down the
Yes.
12th time going to the bike shop,
Right.
you got the job. So do you
That's
guys
right,
see my,
that's right.
does everybody see the screen now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well done, well done, well done.
Thank you very much. All right, so here we go, strengths impacting employment. Kerry, did you want to add to that or share any examples of strengths that you've seen of autistic adults that really should be highlighted in the workplace?
So Stephen touched on it a little bit already. I gave a talks at Google many, many years ago, which is basically a TED style type talk, which happens at Google's workplace. And it was on the ROI benefits of hiring autistic people in the workplace. And it was in Boston, Cambridge. And it was so interesting because a few days before I was giving this talk, The Guardian just came out with an article about Dan Aykroyd having autism. And it was so funny to me because he said that his autism was the reason why he was able to co-write the script Ghostbusters with Bill Murray in the 1980s, because growing up, because of his laser key focused interest in being a crime detective and also being a ghost hunter, led him to wanting to find a passion project once he decided he wanted to go into theater later on in his life, and actually came up with that script. You know, I have the similar story of the kid who grew up loving basketball and being able to tell you all 30 NBA teams and every single player on one of those teams, gained an undergraduate degree in sport management before changing career paths and going into a full-time career of public speaking, because my second career was wanting to be the sixth member of the Backstreet Boys. And I couldn't sing for the life of me, but I fell in love with theater and I fell in love with acting. And that led to the career I have today. I see so many of the kids I work with as a peer mentor who have, when they have those focus in place, it not only can lead to potential careers, but it also leads to a lot of self-awareness of what they potentially can do. I see this a lot in the STEM realms of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but I'm seeing it a lot in the arts today. I'm seeing it in a lot of other realms too. This PowerPoint slide has a lot of what I was just going to mention. I mean, the biggest thing for me is authenticity, loyalty, honesty, independent thinking, and also strong memory skills, very visual based learning as well, being visual processing, being a great area as well. It's, but again, it is a spectrum, but those are some of the key strengths that I often see, especially in the workplace for those with autism.
Thank you so much. I couldn't agree more. We have individuals with autism that work in our foundation, and I think each of these things, every single one of the adults that we have hired has, and it's just amazing. I know we had a young man that was working in our facility department, and he was struggling with learning the steps of one of his job tasks, and we showed him a video of all the steps. He watched the video 2 times and he never did it wrong again, and he never missed a step. We could have conversations with him about this. You could show him even a picture of this, but as soon as he saw it, not just live, but watched a video 2 times, and the videos were like a minute, he did it perfectly. I mean, it was beautiful to watch. And I don't know that I could have done that. And so I find the brain of autistic adults to be just so incredible. And I love learning from adults. And I love that we have adults with autism working for us at the foundation. So I appreciate you guys highlighting this. All right. So we talked a little bit about that we were going to discuss barriers to entry into employment. And I think we've somewhat touched on that with regards to the interview process, with regards to vocational rehabilitation counselors not necessarily always knowing how to best assess, or our job coaches having all the skills that they need to adequately support autistic adults depending on their verbal abilities. Any other barriers you guys want to discuss? And then we want to really get to onboarding strategies for success and making sure we expand on reasonable accommodations in the workplace.
I think the more people learn about autism, and the more the more people get to learn about autism and become aware of the great strengths that we can bring to employment, to the workplace, while still being realistic about the challenges. The challenges are really, really there. So we do have to address them, but they're also, for the most part, not onerous. And as Kerry mentioned, very, very simple. And when we get to accommodations, I'm going to talk about how when we think about accommodations as being sometimes expensive in terms of time and money, resources that we're doing just for 1 or 2 people, they end up making the workplace better for everybody else as well.
Yes.
That was very well said, Stephen. I mean, just based on what we were already just discussing, I mean, barriers to entry, the only other thing that I wanted to address was the importance of just having clear job descriptions. I can't tell you, and I talked a little bit in the beginning about how some studies indicate that 90% of autistic adults are unemployed or underemployed, but there is a lot of turnover within those first few months of people losing their jobs because they truly didn't understand the job that they were actually receiving. So the importance of clear job responsibilities, if you're posting your applications on monster.com, Glassdoor, anywhere you're posting your jobs, just make sure that they're very clear and precise. That will definitely help you find not only in the autism world, but the right targeted people to truly succeed, and also decreasing turnover, hopefully, in your company as well. And then the only other thing I would say about reasonable accommodations is realize that every organization should have some form of professional development funding towards disability, because unfortunately, in many diversity actual literature and offsite literature, there is really never a mention of disability in a lot of organizations today. And that's really, really disappointing, with most of it focused on the LGBTQ community. Don't get me wrong, important topics, gender equality as well, race. But we also need to remember that disability is the largest minority in the United States, and autism takes a big part of that.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up, because you know, with a big push now for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, and really that being brought to the forefront of employers' wherewithal and their awareness of what needs to be done. I've questioned that myself, Kerry, as to, you know, yes, we're looking at all these other groups, but right here at Else for Autism, we have a whole group that really is in need of employment, needs to be included, needs to have equity in salaries, equity in accommodations and whatnot. What can you, either of you, expand on any experience that you've had in the community recently with diversity, equity, and inclusion discussions?
Yes, we're spending a lot of efforts, as I believe most, maybe even all universities are, on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as was just mentioned, it's important to realize that disability is also part of the conversation. And we want to make sure, not to overuse the word, that it remains included in that conversation.
Yeah.
I just preach everything that Stephen said to that. More universities are realizing the importance of it, especially getting from the transition, especially when we're talking about job fairs and career fairs in our universities as well. And it's just a very vital topic. And I know I'm going to address some of this later when we discuss another topic. So I'll just leave it off that for, but also just praising Stephen's comments because they're 100% accurate.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. I know you were talking about early intervention and how that's been such a focus and how it's so important. I actually think with this push for diversity and equality in the workplace, it's starting to have schools think differently about the supports and the education and the services and how they're delivering it to be able to better prepare our adults because of the push in the employment sector. So I'm hoping that that continues to set current younger students up for success later on. So I know that we wanted to talk about bullying in workplace bullying, prevention strategies, responses, and the autistic adult, and how we can prevent this from happening. Kerry or Stephen, did you want to, either of you have a preference on who leads this?
Kerry, do you want to lead this one?
Stephen, did I start the last one? Stephen, if you would like to start this one, we're both. Stephen, if you want me to start this one, I could definitely just kick it off.
Oh, sure. Why not? Why don't you kick it off?
Awesome. I love October because not only is it National Disability Employment Awareness Month, but it's also National Bullying Prevention Month. The problem when we discuss workplace bullying is that it's very taboo in nature because a lot of people think that bullying is only in school-age children. It's not. It couldn't be further from the truth. And the fact is that organizations such as the Workplace Bullying Institute indicate that 4 out of 10 professionals are currently being bullied in the workplace today. And that coincides with the fact that those who are disabled in the workplace are more likely to be bullied compared to their non-disabled coworkers. It, ironically enough, is very similar to school-age children. Those who are bullied in school, the prevalence is twice as high for those with students who have disabilities. So what can we do? I mean, there are so many things from not only addressing it at the company, but also making sure that we are providing professional development funding on best practices on how to not only address it if you are being the one who is being the victim of bullying, but also if you're just a bystander, if you're a coworker who is seeing a bullying situation occurring. There, ironically enough, is a hotline that you can actually check out today from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I'm forgetting the number off the top of my head, but if anyone contacts me after today's presentation, I'm more than happy to send that to you. There are more resources, and ironically enough, many years ago, because organizations such as the Department of Labor realized that there was a lot of workplace bullying happening in our communities led to an initiative called stopbullying.gov, where we actually have larger conversations about bullying situations happening in our school and in the workplace. So we need to speak up, more important than anything, about this, but we also need to encourage our disabled employees to actually go about self-advocating for themselves if a bullying situation occurs. We need to build a lot more awareness and also self-awareness in the disabled workers about what bullying is and what bullying isn't as well. And it goes the same for school-age children too.
And Kerry, you're absolutely right about that. And also it's important to realize that, like in schools, bullying is not the responsibility of the person being bullied. We shouldn't be expected to ignore the bully, stick up for ourselves, fight back, advocate, even though we should have these skills to do that. Now, that said, it's always mystified me how anybody could think, could place most of the responsibility in addressing this problem, this relational problem with another person, on the person who has the least amount of power in a situation. So that's why it's important. As Kerry mentioned, there needs to be more resources and more efforts put towards recognizing bullying, both in school, both in employment, and then doing things about it so that bullying is just not tolerated.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that really quickly, and Stephen, you made a great point right there. Documentation is truly, truly vital to these conversations. I can't tell you enough how many people it's just hearsay, and that will not get you anywhere, especially because we are seeing a rise in bullying of senior leadership to workers who are below them on the employment organization chart. So we need to have more conversations about also documentation and making sure. One of the things I say, and this is across the lifespan for those with autism, if it isn't written down, it did not happen. Going everywhere from the early intervention, IEP, journals, documentation is truly key.
Yeah, that's right.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but Stephen, I think what you said just, it made me pause for a minute. It was such a powerful statement that if an autistic adult or a child with autism is getting bullied, and the responsibility is on the person that already has vulnerabilities in the social realm to deal with the bully. My question for you is, my thoughts, I guess, would be that the adult or the child has to actually know they're being bullied, right? And that because sometimes bullying can be very subtle. Sometimes there's these microaggressions, and it almost would take education of the employers to be able to identify these subtleties to let the employee or the child know that this is not someone actually being, if they do it in a more manipulative way versus in a straight macroaggression based bullying. I think that there's a spectrum of bullying that happens, and I could imagine that sometimes it may be happening and someone may not even realize that it is bullying to report or to know to deal with. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, that does occur because bullying tends to be a very social type of thing. And recognizing and decoding social interaction can be very challenging for those of us, which is why we need to both educate the autistic person as to when they might be being bullied, to be able to decode it, but two, also educating supervisors and others who are in charge, who should be making the place a bully-free zone in the first place.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. have experience with a provider that's supporting an adolescent that's getting bullied currently. And you know how we always look for the red flags in the situation. This provider is actually teaching this adolescent to look for yellow flags. Those flags that aren't completely blatant, but how to recognize what falls under these yellow flags versus the green or go and the red are bad, because it's all the middle, right? The gray or that hidden curriculum piece that really sometimes gets lost in translation.
I just want to jump in. We had a question. We have a couple questions, but one specific to being bullied right now. There was a request of examples of subtle bullying.
Yeah, I mean, subtle bullying could be anything from potentially just telling an employer that their work is. So I think when we talk a lot about subtle bullying, we're talking about how some criticism is constructive in nature and some of it is just meant to let somebody down. That would be something that would be more subtle in nature. For example, if somebody was saying that, oh, I guess this work is good enough, that would be an indication of subtle bullying. You're trying to put the person down. That's really where a lot of verbal bullying ends up starting in a conversation. It's really the subtleness of it and then building up over time, which is why documentation can be important in those areas. It can also just be very, very just a physical look in a certain direction can be an example of subtle bullying. There is a very wide spectrum of cases that can happen in terms of body language as well, along with facial expressions and also social cues as well. So it really, really depends on the situation. I would be so curious if the person who mentioned it is aware of bullying situation happening and kind of has examples that they want to share as well. So I'd love to see that as well. But that's kind of my understanding of subtle bullying.
Yeah, I'm thinking also of isolating the person, whereby, you know, there might be some coworkers in the lunchroom or in the hallway, and then as soon as that individual, the autistic individual, walks by, they stop talking, or they're talking about let's go out to lunch, and never include the other individual, and it happens repeatedly where the person is left out.
I also think it's if you know that somebody will always say yes, giving them extra tasks where it seems to align with a job, but you would probably never give those types of tasks on that kind of basis to somebody that would most likely say, why are you giving this to me again? Or why do I have to do this, versus an autistic adult in a workplace learning a rule. Let's say that I'm supposed to do what my boss tells me to do, and then almost taking advantage of that. And if you're nice about it, then it seems like you're supporting the person and you want them to succeed, versus giving them tasks that possibly shouldn't really be given, at least at that rate or on that basis. To me, that seems like it would be a form of subtle bullying if it was a pattern.
Yeah, that would be. And that's the challenge that we face with bullying, is that it can be very subtle, especially in the social realm. Most bullying that's noticed is physical bullying, which doesn't occur that often in the workplace. And we see that more in grade school. So that's pretty visible. People can see it and do something about it. But when it comes to the social type bullying, and also cyberbullying, although cyberbullying is, because it is what it is, it can also be documented pretty easily.
Absolutely.
And I did
go
sorry,
ahead.
the individual that did ask the question has added on. So if someone criticizes me in a non-constructive way with a mean tone and words, is that bullying?
It depends how often it happens.
Yeah.
If it happens once or very rarely, and especially if that's how the person interacts with non-autistic people or just their co-workers in general. And again, this is something that's pretty rare. If it happens often, then and is repeated, then it may be bullying. But also that said, we shouldn't be talking in a mean tone to anybody at work. And that in and of itself needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm just going to be the timekeeper because I know
Yeah.
we're at about
Okay.
8 o'clock, but I just wanted to make sure that, oh, look at that.
Oh,
We're
there
at
you
the
are.
Q&A, hands raised. So for the purpose of respecting everybody's time, I don't know if there was any other questions that came in or if you had any other
Yes.
ones to share.
There was
Mart,
another
you're on.
question. So do you think sign language classes should be made more available considering that many individuals struggle with communication?
I think we might need to know more information in general. Of course, it's always good to expand one's capacities and abilities to communicate. That said, seeing it available in academic arenas such as school, possibly, and I've seen schools do this, sign language in a number of schools is considered as a language that could be learned as opposed to Spanish or French or Russian or some other language. So I think in general, it's good if it's more available.
Yeah, I would agree as well. Just I also think from the aspect of those who are on the cusp of receiving a diagnosis, who haven't been formally diagnosed and have some form of comorbidities such as selective mutism. I mean, it can't hurt to have
Oh,
more
it can't.
opportunities. But I think that we should initially have larger conversations about American Sign Language. I mean, we should have larger conversations about PEC sports in our schools and making them easily available so non-speaking individuals can speak with speaking students. I think just in terms of how we communicate overall, there are a lot of tools that we should be trying to utilize more to build a bridge towards conversation for everybody.
Yeah, my thoughts on that, just being that I'm a speech language pathologist, so I get, and actually in undergrad, my foreign language was sign language, is maybe having the conversation take a pathway to understanding communication bill of rights, like you had said, Kerry, and really the broader umbrella of augmentative and alternative communication and the multiple modes of communication maybe that someone has. So maybe they use gestures and sign, but also have a no-tech communication board with a speech generating device. And the goal would be that employers know that different people communicate in different ways and that we need to be thinking about what's the best way for that person to communicate in that job, in that role, and how do we best support them in whatever way they need or the multiple ways that they have to communicate. And that was what part of my hope of my dissertation and my research is to train job coaches, to train employers on how to support augmentative communication in those that have complex communication needs. So hopefully that will align and continue to move forward.
Well said.
Yes.
Does anyone else, any of the attendees, whether on Zoom or on Facebook, have any questions for our wonderful panelists? I know I have a slew of questions, but I don't want to monopolize. First of all, Stephen, I did not know that you played so many instruments. How did I not know this? I don't know. But being a musician as well, I was like, I actually got distracted for part of the session just thinking about which instruments. Can I ask you which one's your favorite and which one's the one you are best at?
All right, sure. Well, first I'm interested in what instrument you play.
I am a singer. That's my primary instrument.
Oh,
but
you
I
play the voice. Okay.
Yes, and I play piano and guitar.
All right, that's great. So I started out on piano. My parents thought it would be good for me to get piano lessons starting at age 6. And I think the best thing I learned from those lessons was how not to teach an autistic person how to play the piano. And then in elementary school and middle school, it was on to the trumpet. And from there to the trombone, and that's when things really took hold, where I spent hours in the instrument closet, checking out all the different instruments, taking them apart like I would take apart bicycles, sometimes recombining them into contraptions from 2 or 3 different instruments that never should have seen the light of day. And so which instruments do I play the most? Probably the trombone I'm the best at, because that was my instrument in music school. That said, the other brasses, the trumpet, French horn, tuba, euphonium,
Amazing.
and then keyboards, so piano, organ, synthesizer, flute, recorder, the saxophones, tiny little bit of clarinet, some string bass, and
Wow,
some others that I left out, but that's what comes to
that's
mind.
amazing. Amazing. Maybe one day we'll be able to play a song together.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. Let me just, there was a comment by Thomas on Facebook Live. I believe he's your friend, Kerry. We should be getting our state representatives and Congress people to write good legislation to help ASD adults get hired by small and large companies. And
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Thomas, thanks so much for joining us this evening. We posted about tonight's webinar to share the love with Else for Autism and all the great work that they're continuing to do. I got to give Thomas, we have a video series where we highlight people impacted by a diagnosis. So we highlight Thomas, got to learn a little bit more of his work at the Autism Society of Greater Harrisburg. And we love you, Thomas. Hope you're having a great day.
yes.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Dr. Kerry Magro and Dr. Stephen Shore and Dr. Marlene Sotelo.
Woo!
And I just personally and professionally just thrilled to be here tonight and to learn from you guys. I could sit here and ask you questions and listen to you inspire the world about disability employment all night long. We are now at our time where we're going to be exiting to employment and our You Can Employ. This is the end of our path tonight. We hope to continue this conversation, and we hope all of you out there, Facebook Live and Zoom, have enjoyed this as much as I know I have. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of Els for Autism and our Autism Advisory Board. And until the next time, I hope you all have a wonderful night.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Okay.